Greetings and welcome to Spiritual Enlightenment. I'm your host, Giles Cochran, and many of you know me as the Celtic Cricket Psychic Reader. And speaking of psychic stuff today, we're going to talk about tarot and tarot decks and tarot readings. And my good friend, the lovely Amanda Babin, is back with me today. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Anytime. I'm very happy to be here.
And we're talking about one of your favorite topics.
Of course.
Tarot. Now, you're a professional tarot reader.
Yes.
You have many clients that you see, and you do charge a small fee. But I've seen you at some of the same charity events I've gone to. You also do read for free to raise money for a necessary good cause. So we brought you on today because I've done numerous shows on tarot, but it's always good to get someone else's point of view. And everyone reads a little bit different. And I have not had a reading in a long time, so maybe you'll give me a mini reading today.
Maybe.
So let's ask some questions to get the ball rolling here. How long have you been reading tarot?
I've been reading tarot for a few years now. I've been reading for maybe about 3 or 4 years.
But you've always been interested in tarot.
Always. A person I was dating at one point, he was convinced that you could not buy your own tarot deck, but he had always wanted one. So I saw one at a yard sale and I bought it for him. And then he wouldn't let me touch them.
Oh.
I was very upset because I wanted to play with them too. He kept them in the box with sage, and he was very obsessed with all these rules and precautions because he thought they were dangerous. And I snuck a peek at them when he was at work all the time.
You bad girl, you. Well, it's funny that some people really get caught up in the superstitions and the wives' tales. I've heard that numerous times that you don't purchase your own tarot deck. I have literally hundreds. Yes, I'm bragging. I've been collecting for years. I have hundreds of tarot decks. And I've bought most of them myself. Do I enjoy getting them as a gift? Absolutely. But what if I only had one tarot deck and Aunt Martha bought it for me and I hated it? I'm not going to want to use it. I'm not going to want to read with it. And now there are so many tarot decks on the market. You can pick out something that interests you, whether it be cartoons, anime, fairies, dolphins, or a traditional tarot deck.
There's even a website where you can design your own cards.
Absolutely.
And then they mean just that much more to you.
So as far as not purchasing your own tarot deck, I think that's malarkey. I have to buy my own. And not having other people touch them, here's where I go. It's an area of gray. If I'm going to read you with my tarot deck, I want you to touch my cards. But if I have a tarot deck sitting on my counter, I don't necessarily want you just going up, pawing it, and looking at it. You ask permission first. I do have tarot decks because I'm a collector that I won't let anyone touch. I have some that I have not even opened. Aha! However, if I'm going to read you, I do want you to touch the cards. And some of my tarot cards I keep in boxes. Some I wrap in cloth. Some are in wooden boxes. Some are in a bag. And I actually have a tarot deck that I only use once a year, and I keep it in a sock, an unused sock. It was a brand new sock, but it was black. I said, oh my God, this tarot deck will fit perfectly in this sock. And I use that for a Halloween reading every year. So, what deck are you currently working with or using now?
Currently, my deck is the Rider-Waite. It's one of the most common decks, but I use it because it's one of the most common decks. Other people that are getting the reading sometimes will put input on it because they've seen that card before. It's a very relatable deck. I mean, if you work with tarot cards, you can understand from the pictures. And the best part about it, see, that's the Six of Cups.
Yes, it is.
It actually has a picture with the cups. And some decks are very hard for people to read because the Six of Cups will be just a picture of 6 cups. And that just makes things difficult, unnecessarily difficult.
Well, this is a traditional deck. A lot of people have seen the Rider-Waite deck. That's the Six of Swords. And this is a jumbo deck, which is great for television or teaching a class on it. And you're right, a lot of people are quite familiar with this deck. So it's a good starter point. But people also will see a certain card in there and they'll try to interpret the reading themselves. So I'm going to ask you, because we read differently but yet similar. When I'm reading somebody, it is my job to interpret the cards in my style and in my fashion. Sometimes the person that I'm reading will see the death card and they want to put their own spin on it. I let them know that my interpretation of the death card may be different than theirs, and since I'm the one giving their reading, they should probably go by my explanation and not their own. How do you feel about that?
I totally understand that. But my idea is that when you are doing the reading, it's up to your opinion and your intuition as to what the cards mean. They're not doing the reading. They're being read.
Correct.
And there's a significant difference between the two.
Do you have a favorite card in the deck?
The Empress.
The Empress. Now, why do you love the Empress so much?
She was the card that caught my eye in the first deck that I saw. And ever since learning about her and what she means, and I've just always had an affinity for her.
She is an awesome card. A lot of people love her. And I found her. There she is, the Empress. And the Empress is ruled by Venus. And as you see, she's sitting on her throne. She has a scepter in her hand. The field has corn and wheat growing in it. She's ruled by Venus. There's a symbol on her shield. She's full of love, abundance, fertility. Sometimes she's pregnant. I look at her as Mother Nature, and I look at her as the harvest season. It's an awesome card. What do you see when you work with her?
Everything is going good when the Empress comes up. There's nothing bad about her.
Yeah, she's not complaining, is she?
Not at all. She's a wonderful, positive card. And whenever she comes up, it's just everything's going well. I mean, how can you beat that?
You can't.
You can't too. The Sun card.
Well, you know, everyone has their favorites. There's a few cards in the deck that are my least favorites. But, you know, they are what they are. So, when you read people, do you ever get a difficult client or a difficult reading? And how
Yes,
do you
I do.
And how do you handle that?
Well, sometimes they want me to pull information out of thin air. And sometimes I can do that, but it doesn't make any sense because I don't know what they want from me. It's awful because sometimes they're just trying to test the waters. They're trying to see if you can read their minds, and I can't read their minds.
No, but you're reading their cards.
Yes, I'm
now,
reading
if
their
I
cards.
come to you for a card reading, I wouldn't expect you to read my mind. But some people do.
They do. And it's one of the biggest mistakes when people come to have their tarot cards read is to just stay quiet and just hope for the best, because some readers can pick up on emotions and how things are going and what needs to be talked about. And some readers, they have a hard time doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can pull up information about something is going good, but something is bad. Bad is also going to happen. But I don't necessarily know what that something is.
So what do you do in a case like that? Give them a polite warning?
Well, I give them a polite warning. I tell them what's going on. I tell them what I see and what I feel. And I try very hard to make them understand that I don't know everything.
Well, I don't think anyone does. If I came to you for a reading, I wouldn't expect you to know everything, but I would.
Some people do.
I would hope that you could either give me some answers, some validation, or maybe a new perspective on looking at something, and maybe inspire me to do something different in my life, or to go for that job interview, or to stay home that day. So that's what I would use the reading for.
Having your tarot read is very encouraging because not only are you getting someone else's outside opinion, you're also getting information about how to handle situations that you may be having trouble with.
And do you have an age bracket that you read, or do you have any rules? For
I
instance,
do.
children?
I don't like to read children. I can't wait till they grow up, then I can read them.
So what
But
age do you cut them off at?
I'd say maybe 17 and up I would read, because there are things that go on in an adult's life, like work, sex, and just general relationship things that do not apply to children. There is no 10-year-old I've ever met that has a love life.
Oh, well, I'm sure there are 10-year-old girls that have a crush on a boy rock and roll singer or a movie star. But
Yes, but no tarot card is going to put them in a relationship with One Direction. Especially not anymore.
how long does it take you to read the average person, and how long of a reading does somebody need?
Well, some people only need specific information about what's going on with them, and some people want a general reading about everything. So I'd say maybe the shortest readings are about 15 minutes, but sometimes I go about 20 minutes, and sometimes if I get very emotionally attached, and sometimes their problems become something that I feel strongly about, and those readings can go on for about half an hour.
Oh, or more. I've seen you in action. You really take your time. If the client really needs some help or needs to question something or a few minutes to compose themselves, you are very encouraging, and you are very sympathetic, and you are very nurturing, and you allow that time. You don't rush people, which I like about your readings. You never rush anybody.
No, I wouldn't be able to bring myself to rush them, because this is their reading. This is something that they've come to me for, and I want to help.
But as a reader myself, I must say, sometimes a longer reading isn't more information. I've had readings that were fairly short and extremely accurate, and I've had longer readings that were fairly accurate, but they dragged here and there. A longer does not mean more information. I like to read quickly because the cards talk to me quickly, and I like to talk quickly, so I like to get everything out in the open and be done with it. Sometimes people want more time. That I notice that you're very compassionate and generous with that. You give them as much time as they need. I think that's a good trait.
And being able to read the cards quickly is a good trait of yours.
Well, I like things fast, including fast food.
You and me both.
So why don't you open up your deck of cards? Now, if you were to read me, do I touch the cards at all? Or
Yes, I would love that.
So why don't we act as I'm your client, and actually I am, because you're going to read me. Now, do you want me to have a question or a general thought, or should I just have you give me a basic reading?
Well, the first thing I'd like to ask is, do you have any idea of what you want the reading to be about? Love life, money? Do you have anything that you want to focus on?
Okay. I think, can I ask about the health of my parents?
Of course.
All right, so I'm going to be focusing on my parents' health.
Yes, and I want you to shuffle while you do that. You can shuffle them, flip them over, anything that makes you comfortable.
Okay, this is how I shuffle. I'll never make it in Vegas.
I shuffle.
I know how to read the
playing
cards.
cards.
I cannot shuffle.
Even though the cards are big, I still shuffle them like they're playing cards.
Yeah, that's called, well, we'd have to change it from 52 to 78 card pickup. Okay, so I'm focusing on my parents' health, which I think is a good thing. And now what do I do?
What I want you to do is I want you to split it into 3 piles on the table for me.
Was that good?
Yes, it is. Now, my favorite thing, I always take the heart of the cards, the middle of the deck.
Oh, you've had
and
a good
that's where
teacher.
that's where I read from first.
Okay, bring it on.
So let's see. I do a simple 3-card layout. It tells me little bits of information at a time. Now, what I'm saying here is that the choices have already been made. So I think things are going to stay the way they are. Nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's really branching out. And I think your parents are going to stay where they are. I think they're comfortable there.
Okay. Now, what is this that you're doing?
I do another 3 for another bit of information.
Oh, how cool. Don't sugarcoat it. What do you got?
I don't think money is going to go very well very soon. And that's not a good thing because it doesn't look like there's going to be any victories anytime soon.
Is this money pertaining to my parents?
Yes.
Okay.
But at the same time, it's just the way things are going to go. Nobody's trying to fool you. Nobody's trying to trick you. This is just the way things are going to go.
Well, I must tell you something before we go any further pertaining to my parents' health. Excuse me. And, they're both stable. They're both doing fairly well. But there is a financial insurance issue going on right now. So you're spot on with the money.
I don't think it's going to go the way anyone wants it to, except for the insurance company. I think they're going to get a good deal out of it.
Well, you're right on spot so far. What else can you tell me? Excuse me.
See, again, now the problem sometimes is the cards get a little repetitive. This card right here means victory and celebration, and so does this one. But you got them both in reverse, which means there's not going to be any party time anytime soon. There's not going to be very much celebration, and I think the thing is, I worry that people are not going to be speaking their mind the way they should be. I think they're going to be going about it and shouting. There's going to be arguments, and I think there are going to be general...
Excuse me.
It's going to generally be unpleasant. Health-wise, I think maybe your parents should advocate for themselves and should be able to talk about what's going wrong.
Okay.
Because they may be going by their doctor's instructions instead of listening to their gut. I think the biggest point for them would be to advocate for themselves.
Well, this brings me to a question. Do they have the correct doctors at this time?
Let's see.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. What I see here is I see that they may be branching out just a little bit, maybe looking for someone after a long time of thinking to themselves and trying to decide whether it is the right doctor. But I do see them ending up with the doctor that will give them everything they need. So I do think that they will look for more doctors, maybe somebody who cares a little bit more, has more compassion, who can actually understand what they're going through a little bit more.
You're right on, because my father is looking for a second opinion, and he's looking to change his primary doctor at this time. I think you're right on.
Well, the thing is, I do see them ending up with what they need.
Good. And what else could I ask about them?
Let's see.
Let me ask something really general.
Okay.
Will they have a decent summer?
Will they have a decent summer? I think they'll have a lot of free time, and I'm not saying that in a negative way, but they may be a little off schedule, and they might have to deal with more time than they know what to do with. So they may be looking for more activities to do this summer. Financially, I don't think they're going to be in ruins, so they will have enough money to do things this summer.
Excuse me.
And at the same time, I see there being a lot of love. I see there being a lot of togetherness. So I would imagine that you would be spending the majority of the time with them, if not their friends.
Well, this summer there's a lot of family reunions because my parents can't travel to see everyone. Everyone is coming to them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And we have a lot of family things planned this summer, so this sounds very good.
It does. I mean, because the Emperor here, he stands for things that, he likes things on schedule. He likes things very organized. But upside down, I'm seeing more time on your hands than you know what to do with, a little out of schedule. Just
Well, I know it's just a mini reading, but I'm very impressed with it.
Well, thank you.
It hits home with me. And that's just a sample of what you do in a reading. And I appreciate it. Any advice on anyone that's afraid to get a reading?
Don't be. My opinion is you should not be afraid to get a reading. There's nothing wrong that could happen from it. I mean, you may hear things that you don't want to hear, but it's not necessarily going to tell you that, oh, your aunt is going to die, or
Well,
oh, you're going to break
eventually
your
she
leg.
probably will.
Exactly, everyone does. But for me, reading tarot is not a negative thing. It helps self-analyze, it helps you come to conclusions, and it helps you think things better. If you think things out, you can make your life better.
Well, I think it's more mainstream now. Decades before, it was considered taboo and negative. Unfortunately, like the Ouija board has that bad
It's awful.
association. I have heard people, not so recently, that believe that the tarot is bad luck and so on and so forth. We're getting away from that, which is good, because the tarot can be used for self-help, confirmation, and it could also give us a different angle of looking at things.
It's a good way to look at things from a different perspective. I mean, when you go to a counselor, it's because you want to understand what's going on. It's because you want to analyze what's going on in your life, and you want to think about it differently so that you have more chances to change the things that you want to change about yourself.
Now, it's funny that you said counselor, not that we are licensed counselors,
Oh,
but
goodness, no.
however, each tarot reading that we do is like a mini counseling session.
Good advice is always good advice, no matter where it comes from.
Well, I think you're an amazing reader.
Thank you.
And I look forward to an in-depth, off-the-air reading about my finances and my love life. I'm not doing that on the TV show, but that is very encouraging for my parents, and I appreciate it. Any final thoughts on the tarot for anybody out there?
Well, I like to say if you're going to pick up a tarot deck, I myself would recommend the Rider-Waite, because all of the guides online usually use those for the pictures.
Yeah, because it's wide, mainstream. It's readily available.
If you're going to find any tarot deck that suits you, I suggest one if you're starting to not get one that has just numbers on them. The pictures really
Like
do
this
help
deck. My cups card. It's just a bunch of cups. There's no number. Is that what you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I would not be able to read with that unless I had a lot more practice. It takes years to perfect it.
Yeah, and everyone reads differently. That's the wonderful thing about it. You ever read yourself?
Once in a while, I do read myself. But I think the most important thing is when you have a feeling that you think this or it says this to you, that you have to stick with it. When you have to have the self-esteem not to doubt yourself.
I think sometimes when we read ourselves, we tend to see things the way we want to see them. Come on, people. So it's always good to have someone else read me. I don't get that many readings. I give a lot of readings. I don't need a lot of readings, but it is nice to get a good one, and you did give me a good one, so I appreciate that.
No problem.
I also appreciate you being a guest today on Spiritual Enlightenment.
Oh, you know I love to be here.
And we'll have to have you back again on another topic. Thank you for showing us your tarot talents today.
No problem. I'll happily do it again.
All right. Well, this is the Celtic Cricket reminding you to celebrate, live out your dreams and celebrate your spirit. I'm getting tongue-tied. She was very accurate with that reading. Thanks so much for watching. Be well.